David Turner joins the LockedOn Giants podcast as we recap the New York Giants preseason opener. What was good? What was bad? We break it all down for you coming up next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Traina, and we're coming to you just a tad late with this show, but as promised, I have former NFL scout David Turner with me. We're going to talk about the New York Giants preseason opener. David's going to give us his expert takes on what he saw, some of the questions that are still lingering about this New York Giants team. And I'm excited to say that David's going to be with me again for each game. We're going to break down the games as only David can. So those shows were a lot of fun. And David, my friend, it's so good to be reunited on these shows.
Oh, I'm so excited again. I'm happy to be here. Obviously, the Giants Big Blue is part of my DNA, and being able to talk about this new regime that has taken over and this new squad, and obviously the 22 season. I'm very excited to be here with you. So thank you for hosting me again.
Oh, my pleasure. So David, we got a lot to talk about. You were able to catch the game. Let's start off with the offense. The big thing with the offense, we heard a lot of pre-snap motion, creative looks and stuff like that. Now in preseason, teams are going to be vanilla. They're not going to show anything. But still, when you look at the offense and the formations and things that they did in this preseason opener, what are the noticeable differences that you saw versus maybe in years past?
Offensive line play. Let's just start there. I mean, all last year, what did we do? We absolutely blasted the offensive line play, right? Mm-hmm. Well, we got to give them some kudos here. Like, they had 177 yards rushing. When's the last time we've seen that total of rushing from the Giants, right? I'm just being honest here. I'm not trying to kill people, but that commitment to the run is where I got very excited, and the effectiveness with not just, the big names, but some of these backup kids looked really good running downhill, like Brightwell and Williams. They put their shoulder pads and ran behind them. It was fun. I mean, Breida ripped off his 16-yard, one touch went 16-yard, and he shot some explosion and stuff for him. And obviously, Shaq touched the ball 4 times out of the backfield, which is great. But I really liked what I saw to Williams and Brightwell. They got their chance. They really pounded the rock and did some things with it. So for me, I was like, yeah, here we go. We got a little trio maybe of, a little depth, which we like to see, in the backfield. So, and it was a testament to the offensive line play. They really look better up front. They're not perfect. Don't get me wrong. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, and I'll let you know where I saw some holes. But from what we've seen over the last 3 seasons in particular to last night, much better offensive line play, which was very encouraging, very uplifting for me. So I'm very excited about that play. And for offense, if that offensive line comes together and gels, and there's a lot of teaching moments here, but if they can correct those and move forward, this team's got some weapons. It's got some weapons.
Yeah, definitely. And, you mentioned the running back competition, Gary Brightwell, Deshaun Corbin, and Antonio Williams. Yes. Yep. Yes. I thought Antonio Williams was the best out of the 3, but it was a very narrow competition. But I thought Antonio Williams turned in the most complete game. Saquon had the 1 series. Matt Breida didn't play. He's dealing with some kind of injury. But still, those guys are 1 and 2. But yeah, this running back competition for the 3rd spot definitely heated up somewhat. Let's talk a little bit about the receivers, because everybody is obviously wanting to see how the receivers are going to be used. Now, Wan'Dale Robinson keeps proving he's a keeper. Kenny Golladay, though, looked like he had a rough night. At times might have looked even disinterested. Was that the case, or were some of those, missed opportunities with Golladay more on the quarterback?
I think it was just like what I saw out of the offense. Let me go big picture, and then I'll get into that. big picture is what you would see maybe first or second period in a practice. They didn't show much. It was very basic. It was something that he's probably been doing 2 weeks, and he's come on. Let's get the complicated routes going. Let's get a little bit more in. It was just really, and that's what you need to see in the first preseason game. Let's be honest. Like, the rookies need to do what they're used to doing for 2 weeks in order to take those steps, right? A guy like Holiday, to me, is like, he's a thoroughbred. He just wants to hit the field running. It's like when we used to have Randy Moss or Tim Brown back in the day at the Raiders. Like, they weren't really interested in the first preseason game. They wanted to get into games. They just wanted to get to play, and until they're playing, they're just not engaged. It's just what it was. Everything was a competition. They wanted to win, not teach. That was just that's the when I've been around some of the greats like Chris Carter and stuff, they're just all about let's go. Like, take my chain off, let me go hunting, Mm-hmm. So I think it was more of like, this is simple. This is this isn't really what I'm going to be running in regular season. So, I wouldn't put too much on Galladay there. I really think that he's a thoroughbred and ready to roll, and he'll be great in this offense. I mean, you got to really think he's going to be the Diggs, right? That to this offense. So lots of opportunity for him to just explode and be great. I think next week the offense should run a little bit more, and then third week we'll run a little bit, and then they'll be ready to hit. So a great scout friend of mine who taught me back in the day many things. The first preseason game, you throw away your notes, because it's just not worth hanging your hat on your career on anything you saw in week one. What you do take from week one are some positives. Never take the negatives from week one. Those are lessons. If in week 2 and week 3, now they become negatives, right? Because we're not seeing progressions. So in week 1, if you see something negative with somebody, just, make a notation, but don't put weight on it. Week 2 and 3, we'll put negatives on them.
Good point. That's a real good philosophy. And it's actually a question that I had wanted to ask is, where do you establish the baseline, and do you keep adjusting the baseline as guys move forward? Because obviously, first day of camp, a guy can really take a quantum leap, by the time camp is over. But speaking of quantum leaps, let's talk about Mr. Jones, because he is probably one of the most polarizing figures on this team right now. 6 of 10. 69 yards, didn't get him into the end zone. Galladay had that pass, which was a little low, but still it was catchable. I'm not sure who was more at fault there, but what did you see from Daniel Jones in his 2 series that he played?
Don't believe the negative. I mean, he was obviously working with offensive coordinators that weren't tailoring the offensive line and the run plays and things for him. They weren't tailoring the offense for him. This offense that he is stepping into, and in particular the head coach and Brian Daboll, he's got an opportunity to get it tailored to him for the first time in his career. Plus, the offense that Daboll likes to run is one in which suits Daniel Jones very much. Okay, I think Daniel still has stuff to work on, but this is his 3rd offensive coordinator in 4 years. So, I've been around quarterbacks like this before, like Jason Campbell. I don't know if you remember that name. Jason Campbell was an Auburn quarterback. Guy in Auburn had 4 coordinators, and then when he got in the NFL, he had 7 in his career. Okay. And people wonder why he didn't pan out. Well, he was learning a new offense every year. How do you get comfortable? It's like change your suit pants every year, and then you want to be comfortable going into a business meeting. No, it's not tailored to you. They're just putting on suit pants, right? You're not going to be comfortable. Give this kid a little opportunity. I think the skill set is there. I think by week 5 of the regular season, 5 to 17, you're going to see a different Daniel Jones than you've seen before, especially if this offensive line holds up and gels. If this offensive line holds up and gels, and that running game and that commitment to that run game is there, you're going to see a much different Daniel Jones. And all these naysayers in New York are going to be like, oh, where was this guy for like the last 4 years? Again, the offenses weren't tailored to him, and he didn't have this kind of offensive line play.
Yeah, true point. But let me ask you this. I mean, one observation that I know I and several others who have been watching the practices have seen with Daniel, speaking of things he has to work on, actually 2 things I'll mention. The post-snap reads, especially when there's multiple looks, I guess, that he has to decide on. Still a little slow with making those post-snap reads. And then the other thing is throwing outside the numbers. He just, for whatever reason, some of those throws are just, errant for a better term. So do you see that as well with him with the post snap reads and the throws outside the numbers, or is it just, a random thing?
Okay, well, post snap reads are often due to comfortability. Okay. Like when you're doing a post snap read, you got to know where your receivers are going to be. You got to know that they're going to be there on time. He's checking to make sure they're still there. He's the trust factor. It's a trust fall. So a quarterback has to have that trust fall with his receivers and with his offense and to know that he knows that that's the right read. So again, week 1, learning lessons. Week 2, we see advancement. Week 3, but like I just said, I expect there to be hiccups with Daniel Jones and all this stuff that he's learning again for the first time, knowing where to go with the ball through week 5. From 5 on, or through week 4, from week 5 on, you'll see a much different Daniel Jones. And again, it's just when you're dropping back and you have 2.2 seconds to make decisions from, first read to second read to maybe get into the third read by, 3 seconds, it's a lot. And when it's a new offense, to know that you're making the right decision, that on this play you're going through it, those mental reps at live speed there's not a lot of them that's been taken at live speed. I mean, he's in practice with this new offense. So that was the first shot we got at some live game action, live game speed. He only played 2 series or whatever it was. So again, I cut the guy a break. If we see this in week 3, everybody who listened to our show last year and saw, I was much harder on people by week 3 and in the season last year. But again, week 1, let's not put weight on it. Let's just notice it. And then week 2, 3, and into the season. But I really think, Daniel, what I saw, the building blocks that I saw from this offense were really positive and obvious, great learning lessons. We'll see if the coaching can come to fruition and they fix them over the next 2-3 weeks before we hit the ground running. But still, not having all the stud defenders against you. Live game action when it really matters, it's going to look a little tough. But like I said, expect these coaches and these players by week 3 and 4 to start figuring it out, and by week 5 we're rolling.
Yeah, well, we can only hope. I mean, because
there really was good building blocks.
Yeah. Giant fans, this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Life can be full of twists and turns that can really test our resolve. If you need a little extra support, BetterHelp is standing by waiting to assist. BetterHelp will pair you with a licensed professional therapist in less than 48 hours with whom you can message anytime you need that little extra boost in your day. This isn't a crisis line or self-help. It's professional therapy done securely and discreetly online. And right now, get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. Well, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned the offensive line play several times now. What did you see from Evan Neal, one of the first rounders?
First couple snaps, a little tall, a little top heavy. But by the end of when he was coming out, he started settling in a little bit. And his run blocking was good. He was coming off the ball and he was moving people.
Yeah.
Okay. But you got to expect that from a rookie on pass blocking, that they're going to play a little tall. They're going to, he was on the ground. I think I counted 2-3 times on the ground. Mm-hmm. So it's going to happen week 1. But like I said, that's the great learning lesson. Like, hey, Neil, see here, this is why in practice I keep telling you to get your pad level down right here. These big boys are going to take advantage of you, when you get in games. And now it's like, okay, I got you, coach. I see what you're saying, coach. And now that he has the bend, because we saw it later in the second series, he really started doing well. I like to see rookies coming off the ball and moving people, because that talks about testicular fortitude, wanting to move a man off his spot, and he showed that. And he showed some work to the second level and some athletic ability to hit some people in space. He wasn't just a guided missile, with a head down and falling on the ground. So, I mean, there's some positives. Like I said, is there negatives? We can sit here, point out the 6 or 7 negatives, but why? I mean, we saw a better right tackle than we had seen in the Giants uniform in 6 years. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, I'm going to hang on the positives for the first 3 weeks with this kid, and then we'll see when the live action comes. But I didn't notice a mental error from him either. You know, again, I'm watching it on TV. I don't have the coach's ability to run it back and see it. But from what I saw, his coach, in live action, I didn't see mental errors. I didn't see them walking back to the huddle and a veteran pull him, hey, kid, you needed to do this or do that. I didn't see any of that. So I think he got his assignments right, and he came off the ball and he moved people in the run game. His obviously the pass game and blocking. He's got to get his level down, and he's got to keep that interior leg, what I call the interior post leg, a little firmer, cutting off the inside track to the quarterback. These are tough things to do. People go, "Whoa, he should be able to do that. He played at Alabama." No, they're tough at the next level because the track travel is very short in the NFL versus the track travel in the college game. So he's got to learn to set and be firmer sooner. First live reps.
Yeah, he looked good for his first live reps. Overall, though, what does this offense need to do? What do you want to see this offense do in the second preseason game that maybe you didn't see enough of in the first one?
Well, the complexity of the route tree is where I get excited about with these receivers that they have. I think they have an incredible opportunity to take trips to the boundary or even bunch to the field into a very interesting role for this offense because they have speed, they got length, they have people that can make plays. They have running backs that can flare and make plays out of the backfield and stuff. So the tight ends, I mean, they have so many nice fun options here that they can use and utilize and play with that I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But I don't think Thibodeaux wants to let any of those cards out of the bag or out of the barn until week 1 or 2. You might see a couple in week 3 just to see how it looks live. But I'm all about keeping it vanilla till you get to week 1 and then because these guys really don't know what you're going to do yet. So keep that trick in the bag until week 1 and then come out and utilize, everything you've been doing in practice that people haven't seen. Because once defensive coordinators get tape on what you're doing, they're going to break it down and they're going to figure it out. And then the chess match really begins. So to be able to use week 1 and 2 to your advantage by keeping it vanilla in the preseason, all about it. Let's play the game to win, right? So, but eventually I want to see those route trees. I want to see more play action. I want to see like Barkley and Breida in the backfield together, what we call pony, when you put 2 running backs in the backfield together. I want to see some of that action going. I absolutely want to keep Daniel Jones in the pocket and not running. As you know, I do not like that part of his game. Yeah. I mean, if he has to scramble 7 times a game in order to pick up something, cool. But if it's a call run, I'm over it. He's too fragile. Let's not do it. Okay. Yeah. But again, even out of the quarterback position, we saw Tyrod come in and do a couple things. And I like where we're at as a team. I like it right now.
Yeah. I mean, how nice is it to see they have a competent backup in Tyrod Taylor who can, if Daniel Jones has to miss any time, you don't have to sit there and pray that Tyrod Taylor is going to be able to get it done. And, you mentioned Daniel Jones on design runs. I don't know if you saw the game last night, the Jet game, Zach Wilson.
Oh yeah.
They don't, I think last I saw it wasn't a torn ACL. They don't think he's going to miss the entire season, but it does sound like he's going to miss some time, and it came on a run.
Yeah, and again, I'm not a big fan of that guy, Zach. I scouted him at BYU. I know his personality, his attitude, and everything, and that was. But beyond that, beyond my opinion of his playing ability, right? I mean, that was just a non-design. I don't even think that was a design run. I think it was a scramble. If I remember
think it
correctly.
was. Yeah.
And it was a non-contact injury where he really didn't get hit hard. It just stuck his foot in the ground and it popped.
His leg buckled. Yeah.
Yeah. And that happens. And therefore, that's the kind of preseason that we're looking at here. And it happens every year through week 3. There are some major injuries because these players in practice don't get hit anymore. They don't, it's all boo-boo touch football out there. So the first few weeks in preseason and in the season, we see more injuries because the body's not used to contact. So it's going to happen. And, I feel for the young man. You never want to see injuries like that, as far as my opinion on playing and everything, but you just don't want to see that. You want him to be able to play his second year and move forward in a positive way, proving me wrong, but
that's why I don't, whenever a quarterback is a scrambler, I get very, very nervous. I'm old school in that, and I prefer the quarterbacks to stay in the pocket. But
well, I mean, if you got a Lamar, you got to use that to your advantage.
You
got to use that to your advantage, right? When you got a Mike Vick, you got to use that to your advantage. But with Daniel Jones, he ain't either of those guys. So stay in the pocket, throw the ball.
I totally get it. And I understand the game has changed, and I'm old school in that thinking, but I want my quarterbacks throwing the ball. I don't want them necessarily running the ball. And I sure as heck don't want them competing every week to be the leading rusher in a game. That is like, no.
No, that's not the type of offense I like to run either. But Joe Montana said it when he was playing, and Bill Walsh said it as well in conjunction, 2 different interviews. The quarterback's got to make plays with his legs at least 7 times a game in order to keep drives going.
Well, yeah, to avoid trouble. I totally get that.
Yeah.
But if we're talking design runs where you're going to, go try to go 10 yards up field or something, nah, I don't want to see that. But that's just me. And I'm sure they're going to have some design runs for Daniel. But all right, let's talk about the defense. Pretty good up front. The back end of the defense, still some question marks. Overall, your thoughts on what Wink Martindale's doing?
Wink took a nap during that game because that's not Wink's defense, just so you all know.
What do you mean?
Wink's he's a lot more exotic than what he showed.
True. Yes, but he did blitz. He did blitz a lot.
He brought pressure, but it was pretty you could see where it was coming from. Yeah, you could see where it was coming from.
It was vanilla.
He didn't stack the line with 10 and bring 6. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was watching, and I've known Wink since our Raider days together, right? I know what he likes to do. That was the most basic defense you're ever going to see out of Wink Martindale ever. Okay. Which again, you have to run because the rookies that are playing need to know what they're running. You need to give them the positives to run further things from, right? And that's what Wink does. I think Wink, the reason why the players love Wink so much is because he gives them success early. Unlike Belichick likes to, pull away success and keep people in check, right? They always say up there in New England that he's always going to, find that one play that you messed up on and lead with that in the meeting. Wink's the opposite. Wink's going to put your best play up on the board and build from that. He's always going to be like, hey, look at this. Look what you're able to do. We need that every play, boys. He's that positive, motivating coach from a good place type coach. And so that's why players love playing for him because, he'll teach. He's definitely going to teach, but he's like, this is what we need from you every play. Look how good you did this play. Now do that here, here, and here. So he starts with the positive and goes backwards, right? Whereas a Belichick will start with a negative and then go forward. So it's 2 different approaches, but it really is tailored to their personalities as well. And that's why it works for both of them, okay? But Wink's defense, that was not what I know is going to come out week 1 or 2. It's just not. And I think the rest of the league looked at it the same way, like, okay, Wink, whatever. You ran page 1 of defense. Got it. So that's just what it is. But I saw some really good positives, like you said, up front. I saw decent communication in the back. There was some back end communication, I think, that got messed up. But again, it's gonna happen through week 2 or 3 with the defense, whereas the offense, I think it's going to take 4 weeks to get right. I think Wink will have these guys through week 2 or 3. But the back end communication, when you're running different defenses and all that, and you have different people in and out, you're always going to find some holes in there, and there's going to be Swiss cheese.
Yeah, but let's talk about the defensive secondary, because that, in practice, and I've been to just about all the practices leading up to the preseason game, and Aaron Robinson, who's converting from slot to the outside, has looked good. He's looked physical. He's been able to cover, knock balls away. You see him in the game, and I don't know if it was nerves. I don't know exactly what was happening, but they were picking on him an awful lot. And he had a night to probably forget. I mean, on the touchdown that he gave up, he was holding the guy, and the guy still was able to get free to score. So, I mean, I'm not ready to say they're in trouble, because I do think Aaron Robinson will become a good player. But I was a little surprised that the stuff we had seen in practice didn't carry over into the game. I mean, was that a case of miscommunication, you thought, or just chalk it up to a bad day at the office?
No, I think Aaron's playing out of place. And being frank, Aaron's playing out of place, and Belichick saw it, and he told the coaches, "Hey, listen." And plus, Joe Judge knows the team, right?
Right.
He coached them, so he saw Aaron learning a new skill set, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he went to make himself look good right after that.
Sure.
And he's supposed to be coaching offense, which we saw the Giants. He can't do none of that. So, he went after what he thought can make him look better, which was Aaron struggling. Okay. That to me is a low blow, because it's like, he is a former player of yours, and to constantly pick that scab, it's like, come on, bro, we're in preseason, spread the ball around. I mean, the leading receiver for the Patriots, what was it, Wilkerson? He had 8 catches for 99 yards.
Yep.
And then the next guy had 6 catches for 62, Humphrey.
Mm-hmm.
But then after that, it fell down like severely, right? Like
Nixon had 81 yards on 4 receptions, but he also had a 36-yarder in the mix.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, they really were at Wilkerson, lined up on Aaron, and they went that way a lot, right? And that was what it was. So again, I think Aaron's playing out of place. We'll see what he can build into, but his ball location was poor. Like, absolutely poor in this game. And again, what I said, we're going to write it down. We're not going to weigh it down. We saw it. Aaron, you need to work on this ball location. When the ball's up, you weren't finding it. We need to get this figured out, because he wasn't. That was not it. And when you're an outside corner, you see a lot. You're going to get a lot of balls thrown your way. When you're an inside guy, you have safety help a lot of times. It's easier to me in there with the help, with linebackers flaring yourself. There's a lot of traffic. You got to be a smarter player inside, so to avoid all of it, work through the traffic and trash. But I think the outside guys get more balls thrown their way, so he's got to really work on that. And we're making a note of it. And if it doesn't get better, it doesn't get better. But also, like I told you when Wink got hired, he's going to run exotic looks when it comes to a lot of the coverages and stuff too. And we had this kid Carr that was out in at University in Reno, okay, and we brought him in Oakland. Real smart player, not the biggest guy in the world, but super smart. Took to this defense really well. Sat back. Wink put him in position to really, him and Robbo put him in position to use his brains more than his skill, and it turned out really well for us. Okay, so again, in this situation, watch Aaron get put into position. I think in weeks 1, 2, and 3, where there's more zone looks, he gets some safety help, get him comfortable, reacting forward, not having his back to the ball and the quarterback. That, I think, will be more of what Wink will ask of him. We're not seeing that in week 1.
Yeah, it goes back to the don't show your hand until you have to. And, speaking of the cornerbacks, the ones after the starters left, I wasn't really wowed by anybody, amongst this group. They have a lot of inexperienced guys. I mean, I saw too many guys lose track of the ball. I saw too many guys running down the field, not even looking back for the ball. Is it too early to panic about the depth at cornerback, or is it just,
What did I tell you at the beginning of our conversation? You make a note of it. Don't weigh on it. Like, we're not hitting any panic buttons in week 1 of preseason. I sat here. I'm at my mom's house. You guys can see the difference in the background, right? I sat here yesterday watching games with my mom and sister, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to suck." And I'm just like, listen, I said, the gruesome fact here, people, is 90% of the people who are watching on the screen week 1 of preseason are going to be cut and never see actual game footage in the regular season. So you got to understand, when you're looking at this, there's 90 men rosters right now. Only 53 go to the active roster. And on game day, what is it? 48 play.
Well, and also 2 elevations are an option. But anyway.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. It's like you're not seeing who's going to be lining up for real. Okay. And what you saw was a lot of base defenses, base offenses, base, which again, people in their careers have played against base their whole career. So they know how to beat it. They've seen cover 1 all their lives, cover 2, but these people have to gel and get a feel for each other. Like I said, there's a lot of good tape to learn from here. Yeah. But let's look at the positives. Like, for me, I really liked watching young Beavers, 41, play linebacker. I liked watching Trenton Thompson play in the back end, okay? 39, right? 39. He played back there. I liked watching him play. I really enjoyed watching what I saw out of the front. Like you said, there's some good front play. So for me, when I'm looking at stuff, there's positives. Beavers was like one of the biggest positives for me. I really enjoyed watching him play. It translated from what I saw in Cincinnati and him come over and play. So I really liked what I saw. That's where, and I know Wink, he's in the meeting room saying the same thing. I love this. I love this. I love this. We got to get better here. Guys, we made a mistake here, right? But for all in all, week 1, first live bullets inside his defense, let's keep it positive because I think there was some really good positives here.
All right, Giant fans, we have more coming up on today's LockedOn Giants podcast. But first, BetOnline.net is the only place that offers the best information on the latest odds, contests, and player props for all your sports betting needs. No matter what sport you're into, BetOnline.net has you covered. Plus, they offer everything you need to know for live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head on over to BetOnline.net today to learn more about the trends and the action. BetOnline, where the games start. Can we talk about Kayvon Thibodeaux? His influence on the game. Now, a lot of people, will look and say, all right, let me just look at his stats real quick. Cause I think his numbers just don't tell the story of his impact. So Kayvon Thibodeaux, let's see, where is he in this list? All right. He had 1 assisted tackle. That's it. And people will look at that and say, what did he do? I don't know about you, but I saw the guy create a false start from the offense. Was the tackle who was trying to block him because, Thibodeaux was so quick off the snap. I think Thibodeaux was instrumental in breaking up a pass because his presence was there. And I keep telling people that even the greatest players of all time in the game, they're not always going to come up with the sexy stats on every single play, but sometimes just the mere presence of them on the field can, impact or influence what happens. That's what I saw from Thibodeaux. I mean, do you agree?
Absolutely. I'm all in. Like I'm all chips in on Thibodeaux and Ojulari as a rush twosome. You heard me on the draft show. Like when they were able to get him and Thibodeaux and Neal, and what was the second thing out of my mouth? It was like, oh my gosh, Thibodeaux with Williams, Lawrence, and Ojulari, and then Roche coming off the other edge, and then you got Smith, who's I think Ellerson Smith's going to be not a dynamic player, but a really good fit for Wink's off or defense. I think that you got War. Trust me, this defense I'm so excited about, and that's why when I saw what they did the other night, I was like, this is vanilla. I think he's taking a nap. I don't think he's whatever, because of there's a lot of tools here for him to be successful up front. And Thibodeaux is going to be a huge factor in that. And within the first few weeks of the season, people are going to know Thibodeaux's name. Like they are going to be like, wow, he went in the top 10, but people before him are going to be like, man, we probably should have picked Thibodeaux. Like he's really a stand-up rusher. He's going to be a fantastic fit for Wink's defense. Like I can't tell people how much, and I'm all in, all chips in. You hear the excitement in my voice. Like this is a key piece to Wink's defense, and with Leonard Williams and Ojulari and Dexter Lawrence up front, those 4 are gonna cause problems for a lot of people early and often.
Yeah.
I like you said, they're going to influence throws. They're going to have trash around the quarterback's feet so he can't step into stuff. They're going to get him off their spot. I mean, it's going to be a situation where this Giant defense is going to be havoc up front. Back end, we got to figure out. We got to see if it's there or not. I get it. But that front is going to cause havoc.
Yeah, if they all stay healthy, look out. They finally got some guys that can keep opposing offensive coordinators up at night. All right. Now, before we close out the show, I want to talk a little bit about the coaching, because a very different style that Brian Daboll has brought down. Very interesting individual. I like Daboll. He's, and I like Joe Judge. Don't get me wrong. I thought Joe Judge was a good guy. He was a little too intense, maybe tended to micromanage a little bit, whereas Daboll kind of has a plan, but he goes with the flow. He knows that sometimes the plan goes astray. I like this coaching staff that he has, which, in retrospect, compared to what Joe had, Joe hired a lot of his buddies, and a lot of his buddies didn't have NFL experience. Whereas Daboll's staff, he had guys that he never worked with before, guys that had both college and NFL experience. What are some of the things you see about Daboll's, the job Daboll is doing so far that has you excited?
Well, again, you'll know more intimately because you're there and you get to watch them at practice and everything, right? I'm watching TV and I'm seeing a little bit of the game, sideline action the way it is. We all know I love the Wink Martindale hire. Like that to me was, with what they're doing on defense and what they want to do, that was amazing. And if him and Brian can coexist in a building, which I think they can, because they're both good people, they're very good core value people. I think that's going to be an incredible opportunity for them to both be able to manage their own sides of the ball and go, and Wink is not one that's going to ever challenge a head coach, publicly or anything. And in a game situation, it's going to be the coach's call, right? Behind a closed door, you might be like, hey, coach, I might have done this differently, but it will all be in respect. And that's what I love about who Brian has taken on, because most of them are people I know, and they are very respectful individuals, strong character individuals with good core values to them as men. And I think he's surrounded himself with some really good people. So when adversity does hit in the season, there's not going to be a bunch of people jumping off the ship. There's going to be people knuckling down, white knuckling it together, and let's get it on. Like they're going to get back to back, and it's going to be a circle fight. Like you're going to come at them, they're going to come back at you. Okay. So that's what I like about it. And I like what he's doing with Kafka too. Kafka was calling plays in practice. I think he called plays in the game a little bit too. So I like that he's giving Mike the reins to do things. I really think when it comes to game situations, Brian's going to be making all the calls and doing it because it's his first head coaching opportunity. He should be doing it, being honest with you, and what he does. But letting Kafka, manage the games and situations, giving him that kind of experience. So if anything ever does happen to Brian, people step off curbs and get hit by buses, and, health affects everybody, right? Mm-hmm. At least Mike's not shooting fresh now if he has to call plays or something, right? He's making sure. I like that mentality of teaching your coaches and coaching your coaches in order to get them better. If they get better, the team gets better, and those position groups get stronger, then the whole overall team look gets better. So, I like so far what I'm seeing. I think the special teams needs a little adjustment, but again, week one, we're making a note of it. We're not right. And especially special teams, trust me, they don't get enough practice time, and in practice time, they don't get enough focus time. So
plus you have different guys rotating on and off, some of whom won't be on the roster come September.
Yeah. So again, I didn't see some good, the
coverage was bad.
Yeah, they didn't hold the lanes as tight as I like. Okay, let's be honest. We all know me in special teams. I'm a stickler with lane, integrity. They weren't holding it. But again, it's week one. We're going to look at it. That special teams, though, needs to get – I think that's the one group that needs to get further the fastest. Mm-hmm. From what I saw in the game was the special teams going to get further the fastest there, because that was the one where I was like, oh, that one, but – you heard me talk about the other two phases of the game. I like what Brian's doing with the coaches. I really do. From what I see at my distance, you can talk more intimately about what you see at your, closer. But the special teams to me those lane integrities need to be sewn up and shored up a lot faster than what we saw in week one. T-Mac
will get them straightened out. I mean, he made comments when he last spoke to the media that kind of alluded to the fact that maybe he was micromanaged when Joe was here, because Joe having the special teams background. T-Mac is a good special teams coach. They've had, decent special teams under T-Mac. So I chalk it up to, like you said, you got guys that aren't going to be on the roster. They'll tighten all that stuff up. But, just going back to Brian, he's such a different personality. What you see is what you get from him. He jokes around with the media. I can't quite explain it. I can't put it into words, which I know is hard being a writer and everything, but just a different personality. It's just with Joe always struck me as so robotic. He would come in and he sounded like, those car commercials where the disclaimer is, bah, 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 they read it so fast.
Mm-hmm.
That's how Joe reminded me, because when you spoke to Joe one-on-one, he didn't talk like that. He spoke at a normal pace, but he almost sounded rehearsed when he spoke with the media, whereas Daboll is just kind of like, he's doing a lot of the stuff that Joe did in that, Daboll's not telling us about injuries. He's not putting timetables on guys. He's not answering certain questions that are hot topics because, he doesn't want to create issues, but it's just the way he's going about it that's so different.
And again, everybody has to use their own personalities and be who they are. Like, I've been around so many coaches, right? And I've seen so many press conferences and everything, and it's just like Jim Fossil to Tom Coughlin. I went that route, right? Talk about different press conferences, from Jim Fossil, who was like, I'll sit down and have a beer with you. We'll talk about whatever, to Tom Coughlin is, rank and file, and that's it. I'm out. So, everybody's got to do what they're comfortable with. But I think too many people, and this is a generalization I'll make, too many people from New England try to be like Belichick, but Belichick try to be like Parcells and whatever. But again, you really got to find your own, what I call your own tongue with the press. Know what you can and can't say to them, and how it rolls off your tongue. It's got to seem natural. I think Daboll, really is a natural person. Like you said, you get what you get with him. What you get in a private conversation is what you're going to get in a press conference. It is who it is.
Yeah.
When adversity hits as a coach is when we really will know what Daboll is all about. And also the first leak that comes out about something that he doesn't want out, we'll know what Daboll is as a head coach, because that's when the first chair gets hot. As a second chair, you don't have to worry about that. But when the first chair gets hot like that, then you'll see how he makes his corrections and adjustments for what's coming forward. So, I don't think Brian's going to change much. And like I said, I think he's filled his room with a great group of guys that have good moral character and good core values. So they're going to come out fighting together. I don't think you're going to hear a lot of dissent, especially in year one. Now if year one goes terribly and the New York media starts going crazy on them, we'll see how years 2 and 3, what we're saying there. But this year, I really think that they got a good makeup. I think they have a great opportunity here. What we saw in week 1 was great building block to build off of and to move forward from. So I'm extremely excited.
And I know, you had ties to the previous regime, but, having Joe Schoen come in along with Daboll, just having that outside perspective come in and do things a little differently, because the Giant way just wasn't working anymore. So to have a new system come down, Schoen has been, no nonsense. I think he has a vision for what he wants to see as well. And he and Daboll work so well together. And the observation I keep making is, those two, when it's time to talk, when it's time for the GM to talk, it just seems like they always put Daboll and Schoen together on the podium. So you have the same message. It's not Daboll at this point, and then afterwards Schoen's talk. So where the media can kind of pit each guy against each other. So I kind of like that. And I even took a picture of the two of them at the podium at the start of training camp. They were both wearing the same shirt. I said, oh, twinning, So I thought that was kind of interesting. It's subtle, but it really says a lot, I think. So we'll see. I mean, a lot of optimism around the Giants. Preseason games, they don't count, but they are for evaluation purposes. Overall, I think we can say that they're off to a decent start. We'll see what weeks 2 and 3 bring. Still have the joint practice against the Jets coming up. And then we'll see what kind of
defense looks fantastic against the Jets, being honest with you.
We'll see. The Jets, look, I give respect to all the opponents. So the Jets, they have a pretty good roster, and the news just came out that Zach Wilson did not suffer a season-ending injury. He has a torn meniscus and a bone bruise. So they're looking at about 2 to 4 weeks for him. So that's good news for them. But let's worry about the Giants, who have some injury issues too. Get some of these guys back. But David, my friend, always great catching up with you. Looking forward to doing these shows weekly with you. We'll see you again next week after the Giants take on the Cincinnati Bengals.
Whoop, whoop. Let's do it.
All right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for us on this special edition of the LockedOn Giants podcast. Again, thank you for your patience while we coordinated schedules. Hope you enjoyed the show as always. And thank you for making us your first listen of the day, or for watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. For David Turner, I'm Patricia Traina. Keep it here all week long on the LockedOn Giants podcast. Coach Gene Clemens is coming up. Ed Valentine's coming up. And we'll have everything you need to know from Giants training camp in the week ahead. Have a great one, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.